Presidents to Dr. DC podcast. Welcome to the Dr. DC podcast.
Nice.
My name is producer Richard, and across from me is the doctor himself.
Hello.
Each week we talk about the weird and wonderful world of DC while fielding questions from listeners like you.
That's right. Just like you. Yep.
Are you a hype man now?
There's no joke there. Just emphasizing.
Oh, okay. From listeners like you.
Yeah.
Support from listeners like you.
Yeah, that's that PBS shit, baby.
And I said, hey, what a wonderful kind of day.
Oh, yeah, between Arthur and fucking This Old House.
Yeah, fuck
yeah. Hell yeah, PBS.
This old dick's hard.
Oh, yeah, Bob Vila's home erect. Is this too niche to talk about Bob Vila?
Is it? I don't know. I mean, it's better than Homes on Homes. So that's really niche.
Oh, I liked Holmes on Holmes, but yeah, that's super Canadian.
Yeah.
Make it right.
God.
Mike Holmes.
So I like that you put this in as a review for this, but
It counts. It absolutely counts. The shit we've counted as reviews.
Okay, but I don't think this counts as Josh Gill's review. I think this counts as Richard Speight Jr.'s review.
That's fair. I just wasn't sure how to frame it, but Josh got a cameo for Ghostfacers.
Yeah, and in that, asked for a 5-star review. And I think that counts as a 5-star review for Josh. But in that, he says, he also have another podcast called Dr. DC. And Richard Speight Jr. says, I bet that's also a 5-star.
But you don't think that's just him reframing that Josh asked him to give us 5-star reviews?
But
you think that's genuine?
I know.
It kind of feels a little bit like you got played.
It doesn't matter if it's genuine.
Okay.
But what matters is Josh asked for him to say 5 stars for Ghostfacers. Mentioned we had another podcast, and Richard Speight Jr. took his own chance to then say that he thinks this is a 5-star.
I think you might be thinking that was just divine inspiration hitting Richard Speight Jr. when really Josh asked him to give 5-star reviews to both of our podcasts, and he found a creative way to phrase it.
I don't. I think he only asked for the one.
Well, here, how about this? We're going to insert the audio,
and you could tell us.
You decide if this is a review from Josh through Richard Speight Jr., or if this is a review from Richard Speight Jr.
That's
thanks to Josh.
Yeah. It's the only real way to tell.
Sure. And now. All right. So, what'd you think?
What I love is how smooth we are at this.
Yeah.
You're really great at, continuing the conversation rather than putting up a brick fucking wall when you go.
Sorry, am I fucking calling?
No, that's true. You do participate at least.
I'm the fucking doctor.
All right, easy.
Say my name.
Oh my God.
You're goddamn right.
You're the one who knocks.
No, God. I'm God.
Chuck. So, this week, what is this theme? Is this just...
We're talking about disasters.
Oh, because I couldn't tell based on the terrible name that you gave this.
It's a great name. New Aster who's dis? Like disaster? That's kind of fun.
But that's not how the framing of that joke works.
Jesus Christ.
That's not how that works. So you just...
Yeah, you're right. Let's all just sit in a fucking puddle.
Yeah, who cares? What do words mean anyways? You're right.
Don't you dare.
We just throw them anywhere. It doesn't matter.
This is masterful wordsmithing. I am Celebrimbor, Lord of Wordsmithing.
Oh, the amount of things you're just doing right
now. Yeah. And I can now, because we're past that 200 mark, baby. Lord of the Rings is coming, and so am I.
Oh my. Hey, that's a thing you can do next week without me.
I mean, it's a thing I could do with...
Pardon?
Damn it, I got caught into one-upping. I was going to say it's the thing I could do with you, too, and then I realized what was happening.
Yeah.
Huh. Really just wearing that on my sleeve now.
Uh-huh. So, we're talking disasters. And what better disaster to talk about than our reading assignment this week?
What are you talking about? Oh yeah, it features a disaster. Sorry, I thought you meant you didn't like it.
No, I meant like because it features a very big disaster.
It does, yeah. Yeah.
so immediately defensive.
It's almost like I'm on edge about the reading assignment.
It's almost like you're on edge about me, and I don't understand. This sounds like a you problem. Everyone thinks you're crazy.
Oh no. Really?
Yeah, I mean that I don't, but they keep telling me. People.
They're right. You should be worried.
So, reading assignment, Aquaman Volume 6, issues 15 to 20.
Yeah. Technically, I gave you the trade Aquaman Sub Diego, which may even go to 22, but I'm pretty sure
I just went to 20.
The American title arc, that kind of first arc of Sub Diego, is 15 to 20.
Yeah.
Is this a thing you'd ever... Is this a thing that, like, we have maybe mentioned Sub Diego before?
We've talked about it a bunch.
Okay, so, like, this was, like, not totally foreign.
No. I knew all about it.
Right.
Yeah.
What did you, like, very broad off the top, what did you think of this?
I thought it was rad. I thought the art was beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, he's reaching into his bag. Oh, my God, what does he have? Wrapped around his claw.
I have it.
Oh, cool. Art's good.
Art's great. It's Patrick Gleason.
Yeah, cover art.
Who's got a really kind of specific style, but I love it. I think it works great, actually, for Aquaman. Patrick Gleason did a bunch of art on the New 52 Batman and Robin, and there was an issue that was like Batman and Aquaman teamed up. It was after Damian died.
Oh, okay.
And it kind of just brings back memories of this run, because I like the way he draws kind of faces and figures. They're like almost a little stockier.
Yeah.
A little blockier. It's not fully like Phil Hester's style, like that Kevin Smith Green Arrow run, but there's some similarities, I think.
He has like an often minimalistic approach. I mean, this cover doesn't really sell it, but
yeah. There's some great stuff in here, though.
But
good use of shadow
awesome.
and stuff.
Yeah.
I think maybe that's why I'm thinking of Hester too.
Because all the shadow work.
Yeah,
fair. The artwork I thought was really cool. I knew about the concept going into it, but I didn't know all of the details of what would happen in the story, obviously. But
so, do you want to just go kind of big picture?
Yeah,
through?
I had a question, which is like, what led to this? Because that's the thing I think I don't know.
So, the lead up to this,
like, why did it happen? Because they don't really go into that.
So that was, I think it's partly like a science manipulation.
Oh, okay.
That they kind of do talk about.
Well, yeah. They talk about what happens to the evolution and stuff like that, but they don't talk about.
And then I think it's partly just an earthquake hits.
Oh, okay. Is that all it was? Okay.
I might be slightly fuzzy on. But the important thing about this is that it takes place after the destruction of Atlantis.
Oh.
Which is from around Infinite Crisis. The Spectre destroys Atlantis.
Yes.
When the Spectre's on its rampage.
Oh, okay.
So this kind of becomes like a new colony and a new kind of... It's part of what reinvigorates the Aquaman title, to be honest. Yeah.
So the sort of like major touch points here are it starts with Aquaman like going into the submerged San Diego, and looking around and just seeing like a bunch of dead bodies and stuff.
It's super grim.
It is very like a lot more gruesome than I would expect an Aquaman title to be.
And that like shot of him on the beach just being like they're all dead.
Yeah,
it's like just the destruction, and Aquaman's the hero that has to come in because he can survive down there. So he has to carry the weight of finding all these bodies and seeing all this death, and it's a brutal looking thing. Like, he comes out and he basically says like, I don't know what fucking happened here, but everybody is done. Like everybody's dead, and there are no survivors. Yeah.
When then the president's just like, look, we got to move immediately. It's like we got to move on.
Classic president move.
Yeah, he's just like he's like I want to tell you that we have like an understanding of why this happened and who's behind it, but like honestly we don't, which is part of the reason why I think I was like, oh, is there nefarious means and not just an earthquake? But basically he's like I have no clue why this happened, but we need to move on as a society. And then it essentially just cuts to like it's been like 4 days later, I guess. It's like
something like
I think in total it's maybe been like a few months.
Yeah. It takes a little while for like the other shoe to drop.
Yeah. And then basically a kid comes out of the water and who's got like a zoo shirt on, which was like part of the San Diego Zoo.
Right, yeah.
And so you can start making the connections that maybe the kid was part of the accident, but it's been too long. And so how could he have survived? They get him into an ambulance and then he dies immediately. They do an autopsy and Aquaman shows up and immediately is just like, I'm fucking Aquaman.
He's like, I know what happened here.
Yeah.
This kid drowned on land.
Yeah.
Like in air.
And he's got the liquid hand thing.
Yeah, he has the water bearer hand.
Yeah, which I think is funny because there's moments of him swimming underwater and you can see the hand, and I'm like, well, you wouldn't be able to see the hand if he's in water.
Well, it's a magic hand, so it's like different water.
Sure, okay.
But yes, yeah.
Sure, I do think it's very funny. But yeah, they find this kid's got gills and he's got fish inside him, and he's been eating fish and he's been transformed.
Yeah, he's been like mutated basically to survive underwater. And yeah, what Aquaman says is like, no, he died because you brought him on land.
Yeah. So then Aquaman does like a press conference, and he's just like, "Hey, BT Dubs, I think people are not all dead down there."
Yeah, it does put Aquaman in an interesting position. I mean, he is in many instances technically a world leader and things like that. But yeah, like the leadership role that he takes on for Sub Diego is very kind of interesting.
They do bring up a thing in this that I didn't know if this is always canon with Aquaman, but that he can only be above water for like an hour.
Okay, that
which I thought was a weird.
I think that was like a thing from like the old days, like the golden age or the silver age, or it was either an hour or for like a day or whatever. The kind of in the way that like there used to be the like Green Lantern's charge would last 24 hours, no matter how much he used it.
Yeah.
That the Green Lantern one evolved to be like, as you use it, it depletes. The Aquaman thing has sort of generally evolved to be less about 24 hours and more just like, have you had any kind of access to it? Are you in a desert? You're going to dry out. Like, you're a water guy.
Yeah.
Like it's a little more like intuitive than like set the timer,
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
But he does a press conference, and as he's doing that, to basically tell them that there are survivors, another survivor pops out.
Yeah.
And this one's a lady.
Yeah, is this Lorena Marquez?
Yes, I believe it is. Yes. Who
becomes Aquagirl.
Yeah, Aquagirl.
She becomes Aquagirl. Yeah.
And basically we find out that there is like a bunch of people underwater that they need to save. But the big thing is like it's funny because she pops out and Aquaman's just like, the one thing we need to make sure is that the people who come up get the fuck back down.
Yeah, I mean, because otherwise they're gonna die.
Yeah, but
because these people are kind of disoriented too. Like they
well,
don't.
Also, yeah, your entire life you spent needing to breathe, and then suddenly something tells you that like you're not going to just assume you can breathe underwater. I mean, I get it. But there's this funny moment where the lady pops out and Aquaman's just like, get the fuck down.
Yeah.
She starts drowning her, but it's not.
Yeah.
Just a funny visual. But then Martian Manhunter pops in and is like, hey, why don't you come up to the fucking space station because we need to talk.
Yeah. And they like bring her up and they kind of suspend her in water and that, and they can monitor her and Aquaman and Aquaman and Martian Manhunter have this sort of like sometime kind of like work buddies relationship that comes up every so often in the comics that I kind of dig.
There's this really funny moment because this is when their 1 hour conversation happens.
Yeah.
Because then Aquaman does this thing where it's just like, yeah, I have to, it's an hour, so it's kind of fucking weird that you put our base in the space station. If you wanted to be remote, why don't you put it in the goddamn Marianas Trench, where that would be great for me. And then he goes, man, I'm sorry, it's been a stressful day.
Yeah.
Which I just loved that moment.
It's a good moment. It's funny. Yeah.
He's just like, I'm freaking out, man. I don't know. This is crazy.
Yeah.
But he then goes back down under into San Diego or Sub Diego, and
which it will be called. Yeah.
And then all of these people are down there. He finds them, and they're all like, "Fucking help us!"
Yeah.
There's so many people down there that are waiting.
Because it's rubble and stuff down there. They've been cleaning up on land in the wake of that earthquake, but like the reason they haven't seen these people is a bunch of them are trapped, and it's a mess down there, and it's taking a while to clean that up, and everyone thought they were dead.
Yeah, so he goes back down there and starts letting people out, and people immediately, of course, want to start going into the water, and Aquaman's like got a bunch of sharks with him, and he's like, look, these guys won't hurt you, but like, don't go to the surface.
This is like a kind of classic Aquaman thing that I think people who don't read a lot of Aquaman don't necessarily know about his character, is that he's not he's not especially delicate.
No.
Aquaman is like, it's for your own good. If you try to leave, my friends are going to make you stay.
Yeah.
Trust me when I say you cannot fucking breathe the air.
Yes. He's like, you're never going to be able to see your family ever again. Like, he is so, like, is zero, like, tact at all. He's just like, he's so
and Aquaman has moments of tenderness with the Aqua family and with stuff like that, with Lorena and things like that. Like, he's not a monster, but Aquaman is quick to temper and generally relatively undiplomatic.
Yeah.
Which is part of the odd dynamic about his relationship with Atlantis and the surface and fame and being a hero and all of these things. If you don't read a ton of Aquaman, you maybe don't think it of him.
Yeah, well, especially because the way that he's portrayed outside of the comics, yeah.
Yeah.
But he then goes back to Lorraine, brings her back to Earth, and sort of like helps her understand where she's at, and she's like, oh, well, she immediately has this sort of like hero mentality.
Yeah, she basically like, in that kind of like Carrie Kelly way from The Dark Knight Returns, she sort of deputizes herself as like the person to help Aquaman.
Yeah, and there's this interesting moment where, I mean, this is obviously post when he was leading Atlantis, and now Atlantis is done, and she's like, so I guess you're king of this, and he's just like, I mean, I fucking guess.
Here's one of the things I like most about the Sub Diego arc is that, unlike his usual relationship with Underwater, which is that he's the outsider or whatever, everyone's the outsider here.
Yeah.
He is the only one that understands them.
Yeah.
Which is like such a cool inversion. It's like this guy who is so used to being considered kind of on the fringe or it's the outside in both worlds now is the only one with the key to learning how to live this new life.
Yeah.
And he like is forced into the position basically of leadership and of guidance and all of these things.
Totally. Yeah. So basically, he deputizes Lorraine, and he sort of takes on this role as like the leader of this community.
Yeah.
And next is they've got to figure out what the fuck happened. Like, how are these people all suddenly growing gills and all this other shit?
Yeah.
So his little buddy, the dolphin, who then is like, hey, my family and I fucking saw this machine. You should come check it out.
Right.
So they find this gigantic machine under the water. They start going through it and tearing it apart a bit and find there's like a living like being inside of it.
Yeah.
Which is sort of like, it's this grotesque thing, like with like, it's part machine, part like eyeballs and like
it's pretty
tentacles.
It's pretty
things.
fucked up.
It's really fucked up looking. But of course, Aquaman can like speak to animals and shit. And
marine life specifically.
This is the thing that I thought was really interesting because in this, like, is he both like connected to like the green and the red?
There are
because they talk about kelp and they talk about like animal life, and
there have been a couple of weird attempts to try to bridge that in a way. There was briefly a thing called like the blue, which was like the idea of anything kind of marine.
Yeah.
As far as canon goes, it kind of isn't anything. But I mean, Aquaman's main power is to communicate with marine life. It's not necessarily because it's not just fish, right? It's all classes of beings. There's invertebrates, there's cephalopods, there's mammals, there's fish, it's any kind of life. So theoretically, if there is plant life capable of communication, Aquaman can do it.
Okay.
And there are other comic instances of Aquaman being like, my telepathy only really works with marine life, but I'm going to try it on Despero. And like doing like he can flex that muscle in a way it's not meant to be flexed.
Sure.
To, limited success,
There's this weird scene that I don't fully understand, which is like with the dogs and the whale and stuff, where the dogs start throwing the dogs onto land, and like something to do with their doggy metabolism or something. But like they says that they're just here, same as us, keeping the dogs in the water so they don't suffocate in the air. So I think there's maybe, I don't know if there's a bunch of, I can't tell if this is just a bunch of dead dogs on the land and they're trying to throw them back into the water.
I think maybe that's it. I'm going to just try and pull it up here so I can.
And then the whale for some reason is on the land or something.
Just a second here. I'm going to try and catch up. I'm just flipping here to get to the doggies.
I think it's 74.
Right. There's the eyeball machine.
Yeah, it's right after that.
Oh, right. Yeah. Is this one? Why am I just spend Saturday or what? Something to do with doggy metabolism.
Feels like it's missing a page.
Here, just keeping the dogs in the water. I guess it's just that they have to like play or something. Oh yeah.
It's weird.
It's just keeping the dogs in the water so they don't suffocate on the air. Oh, I think it's maybe that the dogs are like instinct is to go run around on land and the whales are trying to keep them in.
Sure.
I guess almost like someone asked them to help out. It's like someone's watching over us. It's like it's Aquaman. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what it is, but I agree. It's sort of like a. Yeah, I'm not sure. It's also people on the land are throwing dogs back in the water. Is also what's happening.
It's a weird
like
shot.
This shot. It is hard to tell. It looks like they're all just frolicking in the ocean.
Yes,
but it's people on land hucking dogs back into the sea,
which is very funny.
Which is pretty funny, but that's what it is. Yeah.
But like I that was the only part that was confusing. But then they basically, you see this like this giant tentacle monster thing, and that's when Aquaman's just like, oh, I can like split this thing apart. Because he's like, I can speak to this thing, and I don't know how he knows that it's all a bunch of creatures.
Well, because it's being controlled, is what he says.
Sure,
he realizes that it's like a genetic experiment, basically. Aquaman figures out that is the case. The people behind it are like, have it kill them. 2 more corpses is like nothing or whatever. And then, they beat this creature. He says, "You're not one creature after all, are you? You're several." And he's like, "I can separate you," and he does. His dolphin friend gets stabbed, and Aquaman goes into rage mode a little bit. Very kind of like sad, stoic rage mode. Whatever this creature was, whatever it touched or ate, whatever it knew, I can know that too. And Aquaman absorbs all that knowledge, and he's like,
he finds out who it is that was responsible for this.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like, this guy's up on land. You don't know what he's capable of. I'm going after him.
But he's right along the shore, so I can get to him.
Yeah. And essentially the big reveal is that this guy was conducting like genetic experiments to try and make people like able to survive underwater.
His whole sort of defense is he's just like, he's like, global warming is causing all of this to happen around the world. I'm just like doing the research.
Yeah, so he was like leaching stuff into like the tap water or like shit like that. Like he had been basically slowly poisoning a bunch of residents of San Diego.
Yeah.
When this earthquake happened, it like kicked this stuff off, and like
that's to do with like a connection to salt water.
It was that, and so then a bunch of people died. Like it did not work on everyone, but for the people it did work on, sinking into the sea kind of like kicked it into gear. This guy was like, I mean, inadvertently is actually the reason a bunch of people survive, but it's all because of this like covert, horrible genetic experiment that he was conducting.
Well, and there's this thing that's happening like sort of at the exact same time, which is that you're cutting to this like organization who's like, oh shit, he's like figuring it out.
Yeah.
But they don't really go into explaining what that is.
Yeah, not particularly in this one. But yeah, it's pretty intense. We get a lot of Aquaman threatening to kill this guy.
This is all again versions of Aquaman that I am not used to seeing.
Oh yeah, I mean, and I love like especially with the artwork.
Oh yeah,
like he's basically Batman here.
He is.
He's just going like, so help me God, like he's like,
What is this? Just artwork or what? What's the whole Martian Manhunter hand?
That's a cover.
Oh okay, just for fun.
Just a cover.
Why?
Because covers are fun. I think it's a variant or something.
Okay, I just don't get it.
It's a cover.
You can't just keep saying a cover.
But what
Art
else
usually means something.
Yeah, it's a cover. Why? Like, what don't you get? It's the cover.
What's it representative of?
Nothing. Just you go move on.
Is it just because it looks cool?
That's how covers work.
But they usually represent what the story that's inside of it.
Sometimes.
This is okay. New bone I have to pick with covers.
It's not new.
No, this is my new bone.
It's the same bone you've had for years.
No. But the bone I had was the art style is not the same as the inside. Now,
you've also had this one. This is also a bone you've had.
Yeah. Art should be representative of something.
Jesus, just have some fucking fun. It's fine. It doesn't matter.
Anyways, matters. Art matters. Words mean nothing.
I do like this moment of Aquaman saying, like, you may know that when I wore a crown, delegating unpleasant tasks was a common occurrence. He's like, maybe I won't kill you. Because the guy's like, you won't kill a defenseless man. And he's like, maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just tell someone else to do it. I'm fucking Aquaman.
Yeah, he's a lot more badass in this than I'm used to.
Yeah, Lorena kind of collapses because she's been out of the water because she comes with him to get this guy. The guy's like, I don't want anyone else to die. He's sort of got a... he's maybe not like fully evil. He's certainly amoral, but
yeah, basically we get like details into like why he did it and how he did it.
Aquaman essentially like kidnaps this guy and like puts scuba gear on him, brings him down to Sub Diego, and is like, you will work down here to heal the people that are hurt, to fix up this city, and you won't see the surface again till I'm like happy with what you're doing.
Yeah.
He basically like kidnaps this guy to live under sea, even though he can't breathe under the water.
Yeah, he makes him have to like deal with what he's done.
Yeah.
And then
the guy tries to escape. Aquaman sends sharks after his life raft and stuff.
Oh yeah, and then what's this scene where is it him that cuts his own wrists?
It might have been. Hang on.
Because that's the thing I didn't understand.
I think he does that. I think to get the sharks to kill him.
Because then it shows him totally fine.
But I think, because Aquaman stopped them in the next page. Aquaman says. It wasn't easy. I was fighting 100 million years of evolution, having them not go into a frenzy, but it looked pretty convincing, eh? And they do it to fake the guy's death because that shadowy organization is like, he's gonna talk, like they're gonna come after him.
Okay, that makes
so they
sense.
fake his death. Yeah.
And that's
essentially it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. That's the intro to Sub Diego.
I will say, like, it made me like want to know more.
What I think this is maybe the first, other than that like one very silly Silver Age comic, I think this was our first like Aquaman reading assignment.
Well, not completely.
Are you about to list the thing that I literally just mentioned while qualifying that statement?
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Jesus.
Anyways, yeah, that was Aquaman.
Do you want to read more Aquaman? Does this make you want to read more Aquaman?
Yeah, I mean, if it's like this, yeah.
Yeah.
If it's badass Aquaman.
Nice. All right. How many capes would you give this?
Ooh, I'll give this 4.
Hey, that's pretty good. Yeah, baby.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have a full way in yet, and it definitely it's like this happens and this happens and this happens.
It's pretty frenetic.
Yeah. But I'm curious about it. I don't really get the motivations of everything yet, except for this dude's sort of. It feels like an extreme reaction to a guy who's doing bad experimental thing for a good reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, it makes me sort of curious about it for sure, and I like the concept of an underground city thing.
Yeah. Because there is still part of San Diego that didn't sink into the sea. But then there's also Sub Diego.
Yeah, which is rad. Yeah. And the fact, and I'm curious.
It also feels like an idea where they had the pun first, and they were like, "Oh, this is so fucking cool."
I mean, yes.
Someone said Sub Diego, and they were like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah.
They wrote dollar signs on the chalkboard.
Turn the S into a dollar sign.
Yeah. I actually think something like Sub Diego would make for a good Aquaman movie.
Yeah.
The world knows Atlantis exists. Some scientist is fucking with we should be able to breathe underwater. Ecology. You could have all those same kind of points as this.
Well, because they talk a bit about it in the movie where they're but I assume that this is over a long period of time this evolution happened, but Atlantis sinks and then their people slowly evolve, or they evolve. And I don't know if that's
it's magic. Magic right away allows them to survive.
Okay, I see.
There is some idea of over time some Atlanteans become a little more animal than person, but that's a relatively new idea. The idea that there are crab people.
I'm now the thing I'm curious about is how do the people now deal with having to live down there and stuff. I'm interested in the fallout of it all and stuff.
Yeah. It's a cool run of things in Aquaman, and Lorena Marquez is a cool character, and it's kind of the end of Arthur Curry as Aquaman before he comes back to life in Brightest Day.
Yeah.
This arc kind of sets up not specifically his death, but a kind of horrifying end for him that eventually leads to his death. And then we get this kind of brief period of Arthur Joseph Curry as Aquaman.
Sure.
And then, his corpse gets reanimated in Blackest Night, and then he comes back to life in Brightest Day.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, we have a whole bunch of questions all about disasters in DC.
Baby.
So why don't we start getting into those?
Let's fucking do it.
Cool. First question comes from Facebook.
Go to the face and the book. Go to the Facebook.
Coming to us from Braden Keddy, who asks, in Batman No Man's Land, did Batman explicitly tell the Justice League not to intervene in the chaos? Which, let's face it, sounds like something Batman would say. Or were there in-universe reasons why other heroes like Superman and Wonder Woman didn't show up to help rebuild Gotham City?
Right. Superman did show up in No Man's Land briefly.
Yeah, you fucking idiot.
Next question. So No Man's Land is interesting. There's an element of No Man's Land that is kind of got adapted into The Dark Knight Rises. A very thin element of it. But essentially, No Man's Land happens after a couple of other big arcs of bad things happening in Gotham. There's an arc called Contagion, which is about an outbreak. And then an arc called Cataclysm, when a massive earthquake hits Gotham. And then in No Man's Land, basically the American government is like, bad shit keeps happening to Gotham. It's not part of America anymore. And they blow all the bridges and they cut it off and no one can leave and stuff like that. And it's totally cut off. Now, there is the element of Bruce being like, this is my city, my problem. Yeah, that's totally in there. But I think it's also implied that other heroes in that are kind of busy keeping the outside world from interfering or taking advantage of the state Gotham's in, like trying to stop other groups from like coming in and taking over or things like that. And I think Bruce specifically, because Superman does show up, and I think he just says like, "Get out," and Superman's like, "I could do more good outside, maybe, and I'll be out here if you need me," sort of thing.
Yeah.
So essentially, it's two sides. There's a very flimsy excuse of like, the Justice League's handling stuff outside, and then there's also the specific like, Gotham is my territory.
Yes.
Kind of shit, which is sort of irresponsible, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, No Man's Land is essentially that they're like, like you're not part of the states anymore. You're cut off, which is kind of like a very thin thing that gets adapted into The Dark Knight Rises. That the city is cut off and things like that.
Yeah, it's a cool concept. I like it.
Yeah, it's a neat idea, especially after, multiple kind of like smaller events of horrible things happening in the city. The idea that they're just like, do you know what? Gotham's more trouble than it's worth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have that one yet. I gotta get it.
No Man's Land is pretty big.
Yeah.
Because it goes across all the Bat titles and it lasts a decent amount of time.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right. Next question comes from Kyle Sovey, who asks, What is a disaster that affected you the most on a personal level? Made you feel sad, depressed, or angry?
Oh, interesting. I mean, I actually
can't
think
make you depressed if you're already coming that way.
Yeah. Nothing makes me do anything.
You want to know my secret?
I'm always depressed.
Yeah.
The Incredible Sulk.
Yeah, I think we've done this before.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't like me when I'm sad.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I do think that this thing that we were just talking about with Sub Diego, like that opening bit before you realize there are survivors, I think that's a pretty like grim, weirdly real moment in a comic book. Like even when bad stuff happens in Gotham, it can be pretty grim, but it's also like, it's Gotham, I think because it happens in like a real city and it's like a thing that's not 100% plausible, but like, it's not like, something bad seismically happening to the West Coast is not impossible either.
I mean, yeah, this is a thing that is a real concern.
So I do think it touches on something like really kind of specific, and then putting Aquaman in the position of someone who could, like, the only job he can do is retrieve bodies. There is no one to save, or very few people to save. All he's doing is assisting in like finding bodies so that like families can get some closure in that. Like it's a way grimmer task for a superhero than what they would normally be doing. Normally they come in, they punch the monster and they go, "See ya," and they leave. And so to have him like boots on the ground, like disaster response.
Yeah.
I think it's a pretty good, they don't spend a ton of time on it, but it's a pretty good depiction of it, I think.
But is there anything that's affected you on a personal level?
No, because I'm relatively emotionally cut off.
Even keeled? No, that's not true.
No, I mean, I wouldn't say I've read anything where I've been like, oh my god. Like,
what about like mad? Like you're like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, that feels like something you would feel.
I not in a
or really happy.
Oh yeah, I love Carnage. No, I mean, I think I just appreciate when a story is well told. I think it can be evocative, and I note those things. But no, I don't think I've had the experience of like reading Batman Cataclysm and being like shaking in my boots, like holy shit, like but what a real thing to happen. You know what I mean? Like that doesn't happen to me. It might happen to other people, which is cool, but I don't really get that way. I tend to intellectualize it more than I do like feel it in my bones.
Next question.
What about you?
Oh, I mean, nothing that I've really read has like,
even outside of DC, like from Marvel stuff you've read. Is there like
sure?
Is there anything that like really got you emotionally? Like,
I think the thing that got me
is
really...
the Terrigen Mists like a, oh shit thing? Or?
No, I only just because I only got a little piece of it, and it was really just Ms. Marvel, and it's the only good thing that came out of Terrigen Mist. But
right.
I think that there's a moment...
I read Inhuman, and it didn't do anything for me.
There was a big like worldwide disaster that hit both Miss Marvel and Miles Morales, and the Avengers and stuff all had to come together, and basically there was like a huge like battle that had happened,
right?
And in that, watching like Miss Marvel and Miles Morales come together, I was just like, fuck yeah,
sure.
Like watching like them all get to like fight on a higher level like that, and there was like a
right,
and the city was getting destroyed, and
but that's more about the character hero thing than the disaster itself, though,
well, I
right?
think it's because I think it was just the response to the disaster is what made me excited.
Sure,
but like, yeah, I wasn't just like fucking burn Brooklyn, but like,
yeah.
Finally, something took out Jersey. No,
yeah, all these blue states.
But also, there's a really
that was me being you.
There's a great moment. Thanks. There's this great moment where because of this disaster's happening, and Miles has to has kept his identity away from his father this whole time,
right? And
then suddenly like has to protect his family, and all this shit's going down, and his dad has been like hating on Miles Morales as Spider-Man,
right?
And he shows up, and he's like, "You need to go," and he's like, "I'm not fucking trusting you," and he's like, I have to tell him. So he pulls off his mask, and it's the first time his dad figures out, and his dad fully just is like, "You're not like my son." Like,
oh no!
I mean, it's like
Miles.
It fully like breaks my heart.
Oh no!
Yeah, and he's like, whatever, I don't care. He's like, I'm still protecting you, and he just grabs him and fucking like takes him somewhere safe. And like,
shit!
That I love that because he's just like, I don't care. Like, I don't care if you don't like. It's like a parent thing, right? Which is like him being a parent to his father. It's like, I don't care if you don't like me. You're gonna do what I say because I can protect you.
Yeah.
And
oh shit!
Yeah.
Well, Jesus.
Yeah. So that got me.
Sure, fair enough.
DC, I don't fucking know.
Huh.
Show me something and I'll respond to it.
I
read this. It was good.
You barely read anything.
I read this.
It's a miracle you're even getting stuff in boxes.
Never good enough for you. Well, good thing I have therapy tomorrow.
Will be when it's done.
Can't wait to bring this up tomorrow.
You don't have to.
No,
if you know what's good for you.
Oh no. Now I have to bring up that.
No. We can't have like a million layers of knowing what's good for you.
I think the therapist wants you to come in next week.
They could want that.
That'll be coming up. Next question comes from the most interesting resident.
All right. Oh, sorry.
And
Stephen Marion Almagro.
Of course, who else would it be? Pay attention, come on.
It's different. It was like 7 seconds earlier. I said the thing you were about to say.
You got me. It's all good. Stephen Marion Almagro asks, please talk about the destruction of Coast City and how that changed Hal Jordan. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, in the wake of the death and return of Superman, the cyborg Superman and Mongol wipe out Coast City, like fully.
Yeah. And he does not like that.
No. And I mean, listen, the retcon of the parallax thing and fear creeping in or whatever, I actually think works as a retcon. I think it's pretty good. But in that moment, Hal wears that failure, like what's the deepest fear of like the man without fear, and it's that he's not good enough. It's that he'll fail. It's that he is an imposter. It's that he's not good enough. And he has this moment, and then he tries to during Emerald Twilight, do you know what? I actually think this is a very emotionally impactful bit. He tries to bring back Coast City with his ring. He tries to will it back into existence. And even the construct of his dad tells him he failed and stuff. So all that shit that's in Hal is coming out this way, right? And the Guardians are like, hey, we detected you're trying to use your ring to be selfish. And he's like, you motherfuckers, I do everything for you. help me do this. Give me the power to do this. And they were like, no. And he was like, I'll take it then. And that's when he kind of goes on his rampage, and he takes out lanterns, takes their rings.
Parallax.
And, the Guardians like release fucking Sinestro to stop him.
Yeah.
And he kills Sinestro, breaks the battery, takes the power, becomes Parallax, and the core is gone.
Crazy. And
that's when Kyle gets the ring. He's the last Green Lantern.
Wow. Is that the whole vibe with Kyle? Is that he's supposed to be the last?
Yeah.
Is that still the case?
Because no. The whole core comes back when Hal comes back.
Sure.
I mean, and there's also these other kind of pockets of things. Some of the core become, what do they call them? Dark Stars. And some of the core, like Guy Gardner has his like weird Vuldarian kind of thing and being warrior or whatever. I think Guy even had like Sinestro's ring for a bit. But that was kind of like the hard reset in the 90s, is it was like, get rid of the core. The greatest hero becomes the greatest villain. And Kyle is now a Green Lantern with no mentor, with no, no one to kind of tell him how to be a hero kind of thing. But like the way they depict that in Emerald Twilight, the way it affects Hal, I think is pretty powerful. That idea that like the desperation to bring it back, like if he used his ring with all the power in it, we've talked about, can the ring manifest things that aren't just green energy? And the answer is technically yes.
Yeah.
But also it's like, but it wouldn't be real. But he's like, I don't care. I just need it. It's that sort of like, you get a sense of that desperation and the loneliness and the, this guy that is always so like cocksure in that. And then he realizes that he wasn't enough. And then to have his own construct telling him he's a failure is pretty like, and it's his dad, like there's like layers to how insecure he is in that moment. And I think it's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the next question from Chicken Maddie.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Who asked,
sorry.
Jeez.
I don't know, man.
What's the biggest disaster? Infinite Crisis, the New 52, or what happened with the Batgirl movie?
So, on the meta level, it's obviously the Batgirl movie. Infinite Crisis is maybe the best Crisis.
Yeah.
Hot take.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's better than the original.
Sure.
I really like it.
Okay.
That's a slightly hot take, but
New 52 is
New 52. Say what you will about its weird like stutter start on continuity and that, we lost kind of these middle generations of heroes in that. But the New 52 absolutely got people to jump on board.
Yeah.
It was a jumping on point, including for me.
Really?
To get back in.
Oh, that's right.
So, and there's good shit in the New 52. If you say that, if you just write the New 52 off, it means you didn't read it. Like there's a lot of good shit. So of those three in a meta sense, obviously the biggest disaster is Batgirl not coming out, like that movie being canceled and stuff like that. That's an unmitigated disaster. In terms of in continuity, what was a bigger disaster, like Infinite Crisis or let's say Flashpoint, the thing that kicks off the New 52?
Sure.
Flashpoint breaks time and space in a way that's not great. Infinite Crisis does rebirth the multiverse, even though bad stuff happens in it, including, planets have their orbits shifted. It kicks off a war between Ran and Thanagar. There's, a bunch of heroes die in the Battle of Metropolis, like the Freedom Fighters and shit like that. Like it's not good, but I think Flashpoint wreaks more havoc. It's just that it also gets undone. So I don't know what we consider a bigger disaster from there. Maybe Infinite Crisis, just because its effects linger. There's more kind of death in that isn't immediately undone. But if you just return to the Flashpoint timeline, which you could do in Hypertime, which we're seeing in Flashpoint Beyond and stuff like that, that world is a mess. It's not good. So, if you go with kind of the original idea that Flashpoint is like gone as quickly as it came,
sure,
then yeah, I guess Infinite Crisis is a bigger disaster because it stays real for longer.
Oh yeah,
but with the hypertime thing and the Flashpoint universe just still existing, it's a lot worse. So that's a disaster.
Yeah. But that Batgirl movie.
Oh,
I don't
man.
know. But yeah, is the Flash movie the most though?
I mean, who knows? I mean,
because at least the Batgirl movie, no matter what, it's not coming out. The Flash movie's coming out.
just crazy shit that like you could see how they're queuing up. Like they're all better now. They got help. Isn't that fine? Go see the Flash in theaters this summer. Like you're like, it's really bad.
Yep.
It might be like the first DC movie I just have to like
not.
I just have to not watch, which is not difficult in the sense that like I have a decreasing desire to watch it. It's only going to be difficult in that like I'm a story completionist. I'll just have to like read a Wikipedia article about it and be like, oh, all right, okay, like just spoil it for myself and just what are the bits I need to know for movies that are coming out in the future, and then deal with it from there.
Look, I've got Harry Potter. You've got this. I get it.
Oh God.
Just have to devoid myself sometimes.
Yeah, fair enough.
Divorce myself from it, yeah. All right, let's leave Facebook and head on over to Twitter.
That's Twitter.
First, wow, that's an extra
Spicy.
First question comes from our favorite religious representative.
Ooh, Chris Chan.
Who asks, how does the insurance industry work in the DC universe?
Oh, God, yeah. I mean,
go back to our Simon King episode if you want to hear about potential conspiracy theories.
Also, pretty sure that was the premise of that Powerless TV show.
Yeah, I watched
that got canceled after like 3 episodes.
I watched them,
but that was about
it was fine.
Like insurance adjusters in the DC universe.
I think the problem with that show is that it didn't actually center around like known superheroes.
Well, they had like Crimson Fox or something. Yeah. They were. I understand what they were doing, but I mean, we've had this conversation before, not necessarily about insurance specifically, but like even rule of law, right? Where it's like, if the idea is that if for criminal law, you have to be, proven guilty beyond the shadow of a doubt, but you live in a world full of shapeshifters and like aliens and telepaths and time travelers and things like that, how could you ever be sure beyond the shadow of a doubt that anyone committed any crime?
Yes. I mean, we've talked about that.
Like the entire principle, the entire foundation of Western law is eroded by the things that happen routinely in a superhero universe.
Yeah.
So I imagine, like, how could there even be an insurance industry? Insurance in the real world doesn't want to cover real act of God type things that are just like more likely. You know what I mean? Like, for example, up here, car insurance doesn't even like cover getting your windshield replaced if you get a chip in your windshield. Even though that is a structural safety issue for your car, they don't do it because it just happens all the time. They just won't cover it. So that is a very small example. But if you live in a place where it's like, if you live in Gotham, how are you going to have any insurance? Who's going to insure a building or houses?
Something's going to happen.
Batman's going to fight Bane and they're going to take out a tenement building or something. Like, it's...
Or you just put in like no acts of superhero.
But at that point, why even have the insurance? It's way more likely that is the thing that's going to cause damage than like a flood. Like,
sure.
You know what I mean? And even then they'd be like, well, we can't just cover flood because like, what if
flooded the city?
What if Ocean Master invades?
Yeah, fair.
Like it's there's so many. There are so many things that in the real world an insurance company would weasel out of that it's like, why? I have a hard time imagining insurance even existing.
Sure.
if you really think about it, if you really pull at that thread,
if anything, it probably has to end up becoming a public expense instead, and then your taxes go into like building repair.
If we're talking about how this society would actually function, yeah, I do think you need to nationalize insurance and liability, and that would be the only way.
Yeah, and it probably comes out of these like super villains like rehabilitation programs where they have to pay back like damages.
Could be, or yeah, I don't know. I truly don't know. Yeah, like the Suicide Squad has to go like steal blood diamonds so that the government can sell them back to the black market so they can pay.
Or, I mean, the reality is, I mean, if you really want to get into this, we're in an age of space travel, which means that like they can just go find an asteroid that will like break the economy of the entire planet.
Because here's the other thing. Sometimes, a disaster happens, a bridge collapses, and then the Flash super speed reads how to fix it and rebuilds the bridge in like 10 minutes. But the Flash isn't certified. He didn't pull permits at City Hall, blah, blah, blah. So now if you drive on that bridge, is your car insurance voided?
Sure.
Like, is the city like, it's one of those things where you kind of just have to go, it doesn't matter. It's superheroes.
Yeah.
Because if you pull at that thread, like none of those structures, the way we know them, work. They immediately don't make any sense.
Sure. Fuck.
Yeah.
Well, that was more complicated than I was expecting.
You're welcome.
Next question comes from Batman Out of Hell.
Oh, yeah. I'll be gone when the morning comes.
Sure.
When the day is done and the sun goes down, my parents are still dead.
Wow.
Like a boy crying in crime alley. I'll make a vow to fight crime instead.
Wow, you're burning through a song that you could have used later.
Shit! Son of a bitch!
Batman.
I've definitely used Bat Out of Hell before.
I mean, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Why does anyone live in cities in the DC universe?
I mean, a fair point. But just consider, like, what's the alternative? If there's a mass exodus, or let's say, like, a mass equalization, where instead of having, like, cities of multi-millions and small towns of 100,000s.
There's also way more cities in...
There's that, but also, let's imagine there's a mass equalization.
Sure.
And sort of we do a weird thing where, like, all towns average out. You're just going to spread the crime out.
Yeah.
And you're just going to spread the heroes out.
Sure.
It wouldn't stop anything or solve anything. And if anything... Bad stuff still happens in like Smallville, like
sure,
such a concentration of bad things happening there.
Yeah.
You live in cities because that's where the jobs are.
Yeah,
or that's where you have to work because you can't afford a car and you need the transit or you need to be able to walk. All the reasons that you currently live in a city is why they live in cities.
Yeah.
Except replace the like quotidian dangers of city living with the added dangers of like supervillain attack or whatever.
Besides, you go outside of the big cities and you're just dealing with vertigo stuff. So
yeah, you don't want that. If anything, you want to stay in the cities.
Yeah.
You want to stay where the weird shit won't cross over.
Yeah, you don't want to get into those Hill House and Vertigo worlds. Like,
yeah, you don't want to end up in like a small town where the Doom Patrol is or something like that. That's so much worse than having like Scarecrow chemically bomb downtown. Like,
see?
You know what you're dealing with Scarecrow.
Yeah, exactly. You're dealing
with... fucking D-Creator shows up in your town. You're like, shit.
Yeah, Dream of the Endless. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
All right. Let's leave Twitter and head on over to Instagram.
Now we're going to Instagram. Take some questions and answer them.
First question. Oh, my God. So... imagine you're in a world where it's really hot outside.
Yeah, I'm there. I can picture it.
And you've got this drink.
Okay.
But
is the drink also hot?
It is because just everything around you is.
Yeah.
So what if you were to take that drink?
Okay.
And put it in a block of ice?
Holy shit. Oh my God. Guess who just got out of a block of ice? He's back, baby.
That's right, the Iceman Customs.
The Iceman Customs.
I was not prepared for that at all.
Oh my God. He just got back from the ice dimension.
Whoa.
Ice to see you.
Welcome to the Ice Age.
Ice to be back.
You're looking ice today.
Oh, yeah.
Fuck yeah. She's barely legal. Ice.
Jesus. Why, man? Good Lord. What a sour note to end on.
That's the only way I know. The Iceman Customs asks, this is the End movie, but in the DC universe. Who are the characters involved, and how does the story go? You can put your own twist as well.
Oh, right. So This is the End.
Yeah. This is the End movie.
Yeah. So This is the End is a Rapture movie, for those who haven't seen it.
Yes.
But it's also about, like, pampered celebrities who don't know how to deal with things. So I think in DC, you have to take, like, kind of, like, vacuous celeb figures.
Sure. So Maxwell Lord, Booster Gold.
Or, like, you know,
maybe The Flash.
Jack Ryder.
Sure.
Cat Grant.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unfair to call all of these people vacuous celebrity types. They're mostly journalists. But I think the point is to take people out of their element.
Yes.
And maybe a little bit self-centered. It's really hard not to pitch this immediately as a JLI thing.
Okay.
Beetle and Booster and Guy Gardner and them all squabbling and
people who don't work great with other people.
That kind of shit. You brought up Maxwell Lord, but that idea,
Green Arrow, maybe
that sort of thing is hard to avoid going straight there, because I think that's part of it. The idea that they'd be, like, slightly more concerned with how to get themselves out of it than what is actually happening. Shit, maybe it's just that.
Yeah, I mean, I do like that.
And then, like, kind of one by one, as, like, the more heroic ones would leave first because they'd get raptured out, right? Your Martian Manhunters, your your Captain Marvel, your Dr. Fate, like, those kind of characters would get raptured out. You'd be left with the people less competent and a little bit more self-centered.
Yeah.
Until they also figured it out.
Yeah.
I think that would be kind of fun.
I like that. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Guy Gardner. Yeah. You're telling me James Franco didn't suck any dick tonight? I do love This Is the End. I think that's a movie that I expected to be too, like, wanky for me to enjoy.
Yes.
And then it just ended. I just really liked it.
I loved Michael Cera in it.
Michael Cera is really funny in it. I like the, like, he and Aziz Ansari just, like, swallowed by the earth.
Yeah.
It's very funny to me.
It's like he's like a coke hound.
Yeah. Danny McBride as, like, a Mad Max, like, warlord kind of thing.
Makes
like,
a ton of sense.
I really like that movie. And also the whole Backstreet Boys number in Heaven. I was like, God, this movie gets me.
It is a good movie.
Yeah.
All right, next question comes from Dem Spookies, who asks, which disaster do you think affected the civilians of the DC universe the most? Because we're in a version of DC where everybody remembers mostly.
Well, here's the thing. I think I should slightly clarify, because I feel like I've done a bad job of explaining, like, what has happened post death metal. I don't know that it's correct to say that everyone remembers every version of their lives.
Okay.
I do think it's correct to say that everyone knows their lives have been fucked with by reality-altering events, and that there is a growing public awareness that crises have changed things for them.
Yeah.
And they're increasingly just aware of those things. I don't know that it means that random people are walking around with, like, 7 conflicting accounts of an event because they have all of their lives in them. Like, it's not like the Psychopirate thing. I do think it's a thing where one person is like, hey, like, Jim, you remember me? And they go, no. And then they go, like, goddamn Justice League fighting the Anti-Monitor. They probably fucked up. Are we friends? You know, like I think there's that kind of level of awareness. All of that being said, the disaster that probably affected them the most is death metal.
Really?
Because here's the thing. In death metal, most of the worlds of the multiverse are destroyed. And the ones that are left are home to these like anti-monitor towers, like these antennae that we associate with crises and stuff. But what is on these antennae? What's on these towers? It's all of the residents of Earth Zero. So Earth Zero gets manipulated and changed and turned into like this wasteland or whatever. But it's only heroes and villains living on the planet. Because all of the regular people, the 7 billion regular people that live on Earth, have been moved to 6 other Earths to be attached to these towers through which crisis energy is being channeled from the dark multiverse into Perpetua. Like these people become like living batteries and power cells for Perpetua, which means it's actually the first crisis event that implicates ordinary people as like a plot device. They become like they have to like live the horror of fueling the thing that's destroying the multiverse.
Jesus.
How much of that they remember?
Sure,
you know, that's open to interpretation. But let's just say in the moment, before Wonder Woman defeats the Darkest Night, before she convinces the Hands of the Source to like remake the multiverse and things like that, those people lived through some shit. And I think that's probably as traumatic as it could possibly get.
I mean, yeah, I never thought about it like that.
It's pretty fucked up. I've been on a death metal reread lately, and that's why I'm thinking about it. But it's got to be that. Gotta catch 'em all.
Metal.
Jesus. What a fucking lob. That's a soft lob to you. Nothing.
That's all you ever give me is a soft lob.
Yeah, just thumb that in.
Next question comes from Robbie's Just This Guy, who asks, did DC ever have a 9/11?
If you're asking if 9/11 happened in the DC universe, the answer is almost certainly yes, because I couldn't imagine that no canon comic since 2001 hasn't said something like, you know, after the towers fell, you know, blah, 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 blah. I bet you could find that phrase somewhere. So, did 9/11 happen in DC? Yes. Did 9/11 happen in DC like, where it's like, here we are. It's the anti-monitor flew 2 planes into the, like, no, in the way that 9/11 happened on Friends, in that the towers are there and then they aren't. But it didn't there wasn't like an episode of Friends. However, all of this to say, DC did publish 2 volumes of like 9/11 inspired comics that are not necessarily canon, but I guess you could imagine them that way, of different heroes and characters dealing with the events of 9/11 or the fallout or the trauma or things like that. And they donated the proceeds from that to various 9/11 funds and stuff like that. So, are there comics about 9/11? Yes. Is there DC artwork about 9/11? Yes. There's that very compelling Alex Ross piece where you know that Alex Ross piece of all the heroes standing or whatever.
Yeah.
He did that, but with like firefighters and, you know, nurses and doctors and stuff like that. And then Superman is in front of it looking at it and saying, wow. So he's like, those are here. Like, it was like, you know, especially in that particularly emotionally vulnerable moment, it was one of those, like, it's that kind of Norman Rockwell thing that Alex Ross is great at. And it is pretty compelling, you know, powerful image. So there was artwork. There were kind of like stories and things about it. I think it undoubtedly is canon that 9/11 happened.
Yeah.
But I think it's just a thing that happened, in the way that like comics also talk about like JFK got shot or whatever. Like no one is asking like, well, where the fuck was Jay Garrick? Like it happened, you know, like shit happened. It's part of history. So yes.
It did and didn't happen.
It did happen.
Yeah.
DC didn't like revel in it.
Maybe. Suspicious.
Oh my God. Jesus.
We know I-beams don't melt. What, it's been a
I mean, truly, Man of Steel like visualizes all of the worst fears of domestic terrorism and things like that.
All right, next question comes from the real Josh Gill.
Sexy Gill.
God,
I'm going on a date with Gill this week.
I know, and your wife.
Oh yeah, she'll
be there too.
She's coming too.
I mean, I bet she will. I hope so.
Easy. That's my wife.
Josh will be there. I'm sure she'll be fine.
That's my wife.
Yeah. Josh Gill asks, would the crisis count as disasters? Some of them, none of them? Which ones and why?
I mean, crises are absolutely disasters.
Yes.
You know, instead of leveling buildings, you're leveling like realities and shit like that. Crisis on infinite Earths are destroyed. So that's an unmitigated disaster.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they all count to some degree as a crisis. 0 Hour, the time crisis, wiped out the timeline and before it was remade. Infinite Crisis, Final Crisis. The Final Crisis extends to the Monitor sphere. It's a disaster for the monitors. Flashpoint, we talked about already. Metal, it was a disaster. It broke the source wall. Death Metal, obviously a huge disaster. It destroyed the multiverse, and then it was remade again. All of them count, but you know, we're talking a matter of scale that is so abstract that it's difficult to sort of resonate with. You know, we watch worlds just evaporate and shit like that, and you go like, wow, that's serious. But we're still only watching like an Earth evaporate in a parallel universe. You have to imagine like that entire universe evaporated.
Yeah,
we always put it in the context of it's Earth 52 or whatever, but there's a universe that accompanies that.
Yeah.
That has an Oa and a Tamaran and a like when we see Earth 3 evaporate at the beginning of Crisis on Infinite Earths, it doesn't just wipe out an Earth, it wipes out Universe 3. You know what I mean? Like that's the piece that's so abstracted, even more abstracted than the idea of a parallel Earth. So yeah, I mean, they're absolutely disasters, but even the fact that it's kind of like, does this count or whatever, just shows that like we have like no capacity to comprehend a level of destruction that complete.
For sure.
You know?
All right, next question comes from Multi Sanchez, who asks, are therapists in the DCU just like constantly booked with people dealing with trauma from these disasters post-death metal? Or are most people well-adjusted enough to cope with the idea that all of it happened? Are the people of Coast City okay with knowing their whole city at one point was destroyed?
So, again, just to reiterate, I think I've been unclear. I don't think it's that everyone has all of the memories from every timeline and every version of reality.
Okay.
I don't think that's it. I think people are just aware that there has been reality fuckery. In a general sense,
sure.
Beyond the hero community, like people just know that shit has happened.
Like the way that they talk about.
So if something weird happens to them, they might say like, "Is this a reality thing?"
Is it like in Marvel with the snap? You think like people are like it affects a lot of people. Some people remember.
I mean, it's the snap's different because it's pretty linear. You know, like the thing that's happening in Marvel right now that's closer to reality being unwritten and rewritten is like the end of Loki.
Sure.
Where he shows up and they're like, it's always been like this.
Sure.
That's closer to what happens post every crisis. Because they go, it's always been like this. But now I think there is a more general understanding that like you may feel that it's always been like this, but you might be able to intellectualize when presented with something that kind of contradicts that something changed. A, there's that. B, Coast City got repopulated well before, and independent of crises. People just moved back to Coast City, rebuilt.
Yeah.
There was like a retcon or a reveal that like Hal's family was out of town, so they weren't destroyed or, whatever when the city got blown up. People moved back to Coast City. That's like a big part of the narrative arc of Sinestro Corps War is about Coast City like starting to bounce back. It's got like less than half the population or something, but people are moving back, and it's the city without fear. And that's why there's that big emotional moment as the Sinestro Corps comes to invade Earth, and they're going to wipe out Coast City again just to fucking prove that fear is the thing. And Hal shows up and he's like, get the family out, blah, 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 get out of here. And they're like, get out of Coast City. And everyone puts green lights in their windows. They're like, we're not going anywhere. The fucking New York shit that I love. That's what that is about. Is Coast, like, they know what happened to Coast City. They move there anyway. It's the city. It becomes the city without fear.
There's a scene that gave you.
It's like that gave me. Yeah, that gave me chills. Like, that's not really like
a disaster.
A disaster. I mean, there is damage and stuff because of the Sinestro Corps War. I guess it counts, but that is a scene that like legitimately gives me chills.
Yeah.
It's so like.
So you're not empty.
It's so
Pinocchio.
The thing is, like, some of those cliche things kind of get me.
Yeah.
And anything about like
there's a reason why they're cliche.
Anything about people working together or like,
coming together
or being good. Like, I believe in you, like that shit. Like, that scene legitimately, like, even just talking about it there, I felt it. Like,
hell yeah.
Yeah. So no, the people of Coast City already know that, and that's not a function of reality being rewritten. They were just rebuilding their city.
Sure. All right. Next question comes from the most interesting resident.
Andrew Delgado?
Yeah. Delgado Andrew.
Oh.
Who asks, on Earth AD, Earth 51, and now apparently Prime Earth, when does the Great Disaster fit in?
Ooh.
Do any of the well-known Leaguers experience the disaster in any of those continuities?
So the Great Disaster, that's the thing that kicks off like Commandy.
Okay.
So where he's the last boy on Earth.
Sure.
And it's the world of like various like anthropomorphized animal kingdoms. There's Prince Tufton, the tiger, and there's the Dr. Canis, the dog. Scientist or whatever, all that kind of shit. So it used to be Earth AD. It was just on its own Earth. The Great Disaster happened, and we don't know fully what it is, but it's heavily implied to involve some form of like nuclear apocalypse.
Yeah.
And a thing that's what do they call it? Cortexin or some sort of like chemical that both like kind of de-evolved people and evolved animals in Planet of the Apes style. So that was sort of like the original idea of it. When Earth 51, in the Countdown to Final Crisis, that became an Earth that kind of gets like wiped out. There's the Mortococcus virus, which we sort of talked about before, that ends up serving the same purpose as the sort of Cortexin thing.
Yeah.
So the Mortococcus virus, Earth 51 kind of becomes like the world of like Kirby creations. And that kicks off the Great Disaster there.
Yeah.
Bendis's Legion of Superheroes Millennium, kind of two-part thing that the two-part thing that sort of kicked off his Legion run takes you through a very glossed over history of the next 1,000 years. And the Great Disaster happens. Specifically what it is, I think, is again some sort of version of like mass annihilation / kind of contagion, chemical thing. I think we're riffing on the basic premise of the ideas of like the Cortexin thing or Mortococcus or whatever. But it happens on Prime Earth. Now, when does it happen? I don't remember specifically. I don't even know that they say it specifically. Batman Beyond is near future, right? That's supposed to be like 35 or 40 years in the future.
Yeah.
The Great Disaster is like maybe a few hundred years in the future.
Okay.
But it's got to be after. It has to be after Thawne and Booster Gold, it has to be after the 25th century. Sometime between the 25th century and the 31st century, the Great Disaster happens.
Okay.
And in that Bendis thing, that includes the Earth exploding.
Wow.
Which is a thing that is not adjacent to Commandy. Commandy happens, the Great Disaster, and then there's a later thing where the Earth also explodes.
Okay.
So it's got to be somewhere like, we're talking like 27th century? Ish.
Yeah.
You know, I can't remember if they actually like give it a century name in that book or not, but it's got to be after Thawne and Michael John Carter, because there's a pretty unbroken history up to the 25th century where they come from.
So does that mean the Legion of Superheroes, is that not happen on Earth then?
It does. They've sort of rebuilt Earth as these like kind of dome pod cities that are kind of like on these like loose bits of rock. Kind of. That never used to be a thing in the Legion. That's kind of a Bendis thing. There used to just be Earth.
Okay.
But
trying to put, I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
All right. Let's leave Instagram and hand it over to Reddit,
where everyone's nice and no one's ever mean.
That's correct. And the first question and only question from Reddit comes from Bladent, who asks, does the DC universe have any special government organizations like FEMA just for superhuman related disasters?
Well, it's not specifically just about disasters, but they have Argus, which is the Advanced Research Group Uniting Superhumans, I think is maybe what it stands for. Argus is sort of paramilitary, you know, in various versions. It has a loose connection to Task Force X as well. Steve Trevor is connected to Argus.
Okay.
Argus is sort of like a blanket term for the government agency that liaises with the supers.
Sure.
I got to imagine there's a detachment of that's sort of disaster response related or coordinated. But that's not their only function. They're not like only like FEMA or something like that.
Okay.
They do all sorts of stuff, paramilitary stuff and like diplomatic kind of like wrangling, all that stuff, because like these superheroes just like cross borders and shit, you know. So Argus is kind of maybe the closest thing to that. I know in Marvel there's the Department of Damage Control. We've seen a little bit in the MCU as well. You know, there might be a thing in DC. I can't really remember it particularly, but Argus is the thing that stands out as like a dedicated government arm that like deals with supers. I mean, that's also only American. There's the whole world and shit.
Yeah.
You know, the Justice League always is like talking in front of the UN Security Council and shit like that. Like there's those structures are in place too, but like a kind of dedicated agency thing. We're mostly talking about Argus.
Okay. Let's leave Reddit and head on over to the Docscord. The Docscord, the place where we sing Docscord songs. We start those songs now.
Don't rush me.
I'm not rushing you. It's a thing you should be prepared for.
The Docs scored. Today's Doc scored mean Docs.
Yeah?
Gonna Docs a scored, you know. Gonna score the Docs a scored.
What I love is how confident you sound.
Scored. The Doc scored.
Really 10 minutes of sandwich talks?
Give me your hate.
First question from the Docscord. The Marvelous Ryan asks, during Cataclysm, what happened to the Batcave? How did Batman get that penny back?
Right. So we talked about No Man's Land, which happens after Contagion and Cataclysm.
Oh, okay.
Cataclysm is when like a 7 or something earthquake hits Gotham. And it's really bad. But of particular note, Wayne Manor and the Batcave like fully collapse.
Whoa.
And Batman's like buried under it. For a bit, at least. So yeah, the Batcave collapses and the penny, you know, Batman has all his fucking trophies.
dinosaur.
The penny is lost. If I'm not mistaken, once kind of Cataclysm's done and they're rebuilding, they just find the penny like in a lower cave and like raise it up. Like I don't think there's a
story for it.
I don't think so. Not for that. I don't think it's like, oh, it washed down the...
Sure, yeah.
I think they just find it in a lower cave and raise it up, and it's part of, like, the visual imagery of we're rebuilding. Is like, put the penny back.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, I think that's it, if I'm not totally mistaken.
They find it, it's landing heads up, and Alfred's like, you know what that means.
Called it.
All right.
He said, heads, you do the laundry, Master Wayne.
Yeah, but it's not really funny.
I pay your salary. Dad. I mean,
Alfred, Dad. Daddy Fred.
More like Dilfred, am I right?
Fucking right.
Hell yeah.
Next question comes from the Chernarchist, who asks, in Justice League Elite, Major Disaster tries to commit suicide, but wakes up fine. Was that ever explained?
Ooh, okay. Major Disaster is a character who has the power to cause disasters.
I mean, doesn't all here?
But like specifically, like he used to have like technology that could start a tornado or cause an earthquake.
Natural disasters.
But then, by a process that I don't remember if it's ever explained, he just starts internalizing the powers until he like has disaster-causing powers, including, you know, floods, earthquakes, tornadoes, lightning storms, meteor strikes. Some of this, too, is that during the Underworld Unleashed or whatever arc that was, he gets a power boost from Neuron. Neuron was, like, trading souls for power boosts for a bunch of characters, and Major Disaster got one of those. And I think he could, like, cause asteroid strikes and stuff, too. Yeah. So it's sort of chaotic, like, power. But Major Disaster is interesting too because he always kind of had this, you know, he was a villain, then he'd feel bad, and then he'd try to make amends, but it would be on these like teams where he's still being manipulated, like by Maxwell Lord or something, like the Justice League Antarctica or like things like that. I think the thing in Justice League Elite, if I'm not mistaken, is that he had like some like sort of drug or alcohol abuse kind of storyline, that he was like not well, and part of it was like the guilt of his powers, and I think it made his powers act up. He might have like injured a hero or something. He injured someone, like one.
Oh, is he a hero?
Well, he kind of was trying at the time. Justice League Elite was like a more like rough and extreme kind of Justice League,
like a Suicide Squad, but nicer. Kind
of. They were like some of the characters from like Manchester Black's Elite were in that, like Cold Cast and stuff like that was on that team, I think. At any rate, all of that to say is I think he had a sort of storyline about like feeling like a piece of shit and having like it might have been a drinking problem or something, and that he was losing control of his powers and people were getting hurt and stuff like that. I don't remember and don't own and didn't have time and didn't read the issue where he specifically tries to kill himself and he just wakes up fine.
Yeah.
But I wonder if, because it's like, I don't remember how he tried to do it, or if it was just the drinking thing and then he was fine because the heroes save him or whatever. I don't remember that, but I think there was a whole element of sort of self-loathing because he had this sort of like, am I a villain or am I a hero? You know, he would go back and forth and his powers were out of control and all those kind of like things. I think they were building this very like conflicted character for him.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, next question comes from Ryan the Prime, who asks, so has the DC universe pretty much encountered every single natural disaster at some point? Like hurricanes, tornadoes, obviously floods. What are some of the best stories involving those natural disasters?
Yeah, I mean, money is on every one of them has happened. I assume there's a forest fire one. I assume there's a...
Sure, yeah.
You know, there's definitely volcano ones, or you know, like I'm assuming basically there's definitely like meteor impact ones and stuff. That's the that like Loeb McGinnis whatever era of Batman Superman has like the kryptonite meteor or whatever that's like hurtling towards Earth and shit like that. What are some good versions of that? I'll throw one out that you like. Is the Superman for All Seasons has that really great tornado.
Oh yeah,
kind of set piece of it. Wiping out the farms and
so fitting.
Yeah,
love it.
Feels especially in the context of that book. It's very
very fitting.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I always liked the imagery of like before Atlantis goes to war, they flood the place.
Yeah.
Throne of Atlantis in the New 52 has a big element of that where the Justice League is initially responding to this massive tidal wave and then they have to deal with the Atlantean army and stuff like that.
Obviously Sub Diego.
Yeah, Sub Diego. That's a great earthquake one. Cataclysm is a great earthquake one. We've talked about like pandemics and stuff like that. There's a Contagion. That's a Batman one. There's also, in your non-canon things, you could talk about, Deceased. That's like essentially a Contagion thing. It's like a zombie apocalypse.
Sure.
If you count the Dead Rising as a disaster, you got Blackest Night.
Yeah.
If I do think we've been through most of them. I don't know that I can summon to mind like a forest fire one.
Sure. That feels like
that.
A low grade, like old school, like Golden Age book or something. Yeah.
Or it was like in an issue of, like
feels like a Superman type thing,
Swamp Thing or Animal Man, or like some shit like that. You know what I mean? Like there's that stuff is
so like,
that stuff
memorable,
has undoubtedly happened,
but not so memorable that you can recount it.
No.
Yeah.
Trying to think, like, what are the other natural disasters that I'm not thinking about? I mean, you get it's
tidal waves. I mean,
you get like a the Speed Force storm is sort of like a lightning storm taken to the extreme kind of thing, which is not quite what a lightning storm is, but still kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah. All right. Next question comes from Lilith, who asks, why does Jon Stewart keep getting involved in the destruction of planets?
Well, there's definitely Xanshi. Now I'm trying to think, what other planet does he get involved with that blows up?
She must have at least thought of more than one.
I guess like kind of Oa, sort of. Bad things happen to a bunch of planets in Green Lantern. They're not all Jon Stewart's fault, but he is, I guess, adjacent just by virtue of being a Green Lantern. The Xanshi thing was Jon Stewart's fault. I think the rest are not necessarily his fault, but are maybe like narratively contrived because that's a source of trauma for him.
Yeah.
I think it's also part of it.
Yeah.
In the way that, like, every once in a while, Batman just has to see a different set of parents die in an alley just to, like, reiterate that he's not over it. I think, John is put in the position to watch a planet explode or something like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. Next question comes from Yokro. Some more Jon Stewart action here going on.
All right.
Do you think Jon Stewart should not have died in JLAW? He was able to recite the oath before the Tommy Lee Jones amount of magma hit the power battery, disastrously destroying Oa and turning him into a Pompeii recreation memorial. Hashtag never forget.
So this is
I think he should have been okay.
This is the animated movie that ended that like New 52 inspired animated universe.
Okay.
It's actually Justice League Dark Apocalypse War.
Yeah.
Basically, the premise of this is like Darkseid wins.
Oh, okay.
And like it's massacre. So many heroes die horribly in this thing. It's pretty bleak, which is like cool in a way, and also like not what most people wanted, which is fair. But in this one, Darkseid goes after Oa and the Green Lantern Corps to get them out of the way. And the power battery explodes and he sort of terraforms Oa and into being more like Apocalypse kind of thing.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, John does say the oath. He's a very strong Lantern. If your point is that he should be fully charged up and therefore survive the explosion, my only counter to that is like the central power battery exploded. And here's the thing with Green Lanterns. Yeah, their ring holds a charge or whatever, but when that battery goes, it fucks their power. Okay. Even when their ring is fully charged, like, it's no Gucci, no bueno.
Okay.
When the central battery is gone or exploded or corrupted. So you're right to bring up that he did manage to get the oath out and he's fully charged up, but like the full force of like the apocalyptic kind of war machine and the explosion of the central battery and being at ground zero for it, I don't know that I would think he was supposed to survive that. I think it's fair that he doesn't. It's still a bleak move for the movie.
Sure.
But I don't think it's like if you just imagine all of those things are a given, then yeah, he's dead.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me as like the logical conclusion.
Totally.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next question from Only Just Dan Dunn. Again, who asks, is there another city that would work well with the no man's land treatment?
Ooh.
Is Gotham the only city you could do that in DC because the other cities have superpowered heroes?
Right. Well, I mean, there is the element of that because they are human heroes, human protectors, it's that much more difficult.
Yeah.
Gotham also, though, has like the interesting geography of being mostly islands.
Yes.
Which I think also helps lend itself to like the being cut off kind of story.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do that with like Midway City in the middle of the country.
Yes.
Or wherever Midway City's meant to be.
Did you do like Bloodhaven?
Bloodhaven is like being like further into like I know Gotham's in New Jersey, but Bloodhaven's like being further into New Jersey. I don't think it's on an island. It's just there.
But I mean, if
Bloodhaven, I think any city at a certain point, you could still cut it off. It's not that you can't do it.
Yeah.
Bloodhaven would be good, but that's also basically like a lesser clone of Gotham already. Sure. If we're trying to think of like a different city where that would be something. Is like, I think you could do it with the gemstone cities, like Central City and Keystone City.
Yeah, except for that, like
you have the Flash there. Even if you have a couple of Flashes there, if the government is just like we're out, and then it's like blah blah blah, like they've just got to keep running.
Sure.
Like you could play the like. I haven't stopped. I solved 1,000 crimes, right? Like, because there's also, you have the thing, especially with Barry and Wally, which is like they still kind of do things by the book. Like Batman will like punch and threaten in the interim to get you, but like if they're trying to maintain like the full rule of law in a thing that's cut off, I think you can do it in a city with superpowered characters. You just have to be a little bit more clever about it, and why is it cut off, and how do they make sure it's cut off? Like if the government has decided for whatever reason, let's say that Central City and Keystone City are no longer part of the thing, you're all cut loose. Does Argus or does Waller or someone have some sort of like vibrational field that like stops the Flash from leaving? Like, do they trap the Flash in town too? Like, does that fuck with his powers? Like, I think you could be creative about these kinds of things and it could still be interesting. But yeah, I think technically you could make it work with any city, but it works really well, obviously, in cities with like non-powered heroes. Like Star City is a good. I mean, Star City has also been kind of destroyed in various states before too. Star City's a good one for it. Gotham, Bloodhaven, you're right.
Freeland.
Sorry,
Freeland.
Oh, sure, yeah, for Black Lightning. Although that's just the show because he's in Cleveland currently in continuity.
Okay.
But yes, all of those essentially apply.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question comes from Dave Rossi, who asks, "Did they ever raise Sub Diego?"
They did.
Whoa! What about all the people?
Spoiler alert. So later in this run, and kind of during the time when the world is kind of like fighting Black Adam, which is an event called World War III. While that's happening, and I can't remember how connected it is or not, a bunch of the people that had survived and were living in Sub Diego, like it starts like wearing off or whatever. They start like reverting. They start losing the ability to survive underwater. And it's going really badly. And Aquaman makes some sort of like magical deal that gives him the power to raise Sub Diego and like kind of reattach it to the land, resurface it. But it turns him into this monster that doesn't really remember what it is, called the Dweller in the Depths. And this is the start of the end of Aquaman, because then he turns into this like tentacle creature that kind of only half remembers, I think, who he is. Arthur Joseph Curry becomes Aquaman for a bit, and then ultimately the Dweller in the Depths, the former Arthur Curry, dies. So in a sense, his last act of saving the Subdiegans essentially dooms him.
Wow.
To like monsterhood and then death.
Wow.
But yeah, so they do eventually like actually resolve it. They raise Sub Diego. Lorena keeps her powers, pretty sure. But yeah, essentially the idea is that most people start losing the ability, and he's
so
like, fuck.
Like, is she?
She is a bit different because she could also survive on land for a bit. Like, there's something else. I can't remember what it is. If it's a metahuman thing or she has like some Atlantean DNA, or I don't fully remember.
Okay.
However, she is a bit different.
All right, last question comes from Mullet Overlord, who asks, was the GCPD operating as a street gang in No Man's Land the most honest portrayal of police in DC?
Yes. Yeah, that or like the fucking science police from the Legion of Superheroes.
Sure, yeah.
Those pieces of shit.
Fuck them.
Trying to stop the teenagers who are doing good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, God, Gotham is lawless enough as it is. But yeah, I mean, there was a sort of feral kind of Lord of the Flies sort of thing happening with the GCPD during that.
And Gordon's just tearing his hair out.
Yeah, because Gordon's like, you motherfuckers. Yeah. But it's like he's lost all of his tools to keep.
Yeah, them in check. And
to keep those kind of dubious ones in check, you know, because Gordon always has
those few bad apples.
Yeah, and that's the end of the phrase. Just a few bad apples, end of sentence.
Yeah. It's a thing no one ever talks about.
Yeah. Not spoils the bunch.
Yeah. Which means everyone's bad. I always forget that part.
They always do. There was another one that I just saw that I forgot the back half of the phrase, and it's imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Is what people say, but the back half of it is it's like for the mediocre to give to the great.
Oh wow!
It's an Oscar Wilde quote, or like it's something to that effect. Where it's just like imitation is the sincerest form of flattery if you're too dull and untalented to do something more creative, essentially.
That's very funny.
Yeah.
I like that. All right. Well, that was the last question, which means that we are done this episode.
Holy shit.
Except for it's time to go on to our favorite game.
Oh my God.
Time to play. Can you guess the name of the character based on who someone who does not read comic books could describe that character to us?
Oh, let me guess. It's like Cock-a-Hoop, like the random fucking dial H.
Well, then never mind. If you've
Did I get it? Was it Cock-a-Hoop?
That would be insane.
It counts. It counts as 5.
No, it's not Cock-a-Hoop. It is a new character.
I was waiting for you to just tell me.
Yeah. Oops. It's a character that I send a image to my wife, and she gives back 4 clues describing what she sees. She does not read comic books, nor does she care for them. I did that in a different way.
Yeah, you're doing great.
We got 4 clues. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. First of 4 clues, safety goggles.
Okay. Mr. Freeze.
No.
End of list. No. Safety goggles.
Safety goggles.
Clue Master.
Oh. Safety goggles.
Next clue.
Next clue. Baked potato belt.
Baked potato belt and safety goggles?
Yeah.
Is it Six Pack?
No.
Or Dog Welder?
No. I will say these clues might be
bad.
No. I think that they are the epitome of this game.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Next clue, please.
Next clue. Color palette of a hot dog condiment bar.
Okay. Mr. Miracle.
No.
Robin.
No. That would be funny.
That would be funny. Last clue.
Final clue. Tattered pirate map cape.
Mr. Twister.
No.
Top.
No.
I'm trying to think. Red, yellow, and green. And goggles. Sorry, what was the last clue again?
Tattered pirate map cape.
It's not a red tornado like Ma Hunkle, is it?
No.
Oh. Tattered pirate map cape. That's interesting. Oh boy. The fisherman or the scavenger.
Nope. I will tell you, it's a female character.
Oh boy, is it Navir Free?
No. Navir Free?
Yeah.
Like never free?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
It's a female character?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm not anywhere close to it.
No, you're not. I can give you a big Richard clue if you need one.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't even have like a short list of characters I'm not sure about. I'm nowhere on this one.
This character is sort of part of the Bat family.
Sort of part of the Bat family.
Mm-hmm.
Carrie Kelly?
No.
Creeper?
No.
I
guess you could say that they are part of the Bat family. Sure.
So, colors like a hot dog condiment thing.
Yeah.
Which I am taking to mean red, yellow, and green.
Sure.
Which is the only way that makes sense to me.
Uh-huh. No, it's
yes, sauerkraut and baked potato belt. And it's not a robin. Condiment colors.
Yep.
And a pirate map cape.
Yeah, like
tattered pirate map cape. Oh, Christ. Am I gonna be mad about this one?
It's a complicated one. You might be mad. Yeah.
It's not like Zurinar.
No.
I wonder how many people are screaming at me. I mean, I really don't know.
Do you want to see the image?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm having a mental block. I'm not gonna get it. Oh, Jesus Christ! Is that Betty Kane?
That's Betty Kane, Flamebird.
Fuck. Shit.
Originally Batgirl.
Yeah, that's the old Silver Age. Well, she was Batwoman, wasn't she?
Batgirl.
Or no, sorry, that was yeah.
Yes.
Fuck.
Pre-crisis did have those same colors, but was Batgirl.
Yes.
Which is bonkers.
Well, shoot. Yeah. I should have gotten that one. Yeah. Fair. Fair dinkum.
Yeah. Is the niece of Kathy Kane.
Yes.
Who is Batwoman.
The original Batwoman.
Yeah. We're going back in time for that one.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good deep
This
cut.
is
I can't actually be mad about that. like, you got me. That was good.
This is the perfect one, I think, because I loved because
it's not a thing I would have no shot of knowing.
Yeah.
It is just difficult enough to get me.
Also, what I love is
so yeah, that was a good one
because
shit.
She didn't recognize them as flames, and so
right.
And I was like,
yeah,
it is the photo. I can't make it flames for you if that's not what you're seeing.
There you go. I'm just happy I recognized her when you turned the thing around.
That'd have been really bad.
Like,
oops. All right. Well, that is it for this week. If you were able to guess Betty Kane herself, or maybe you want to send us a question for next week's episode.
I'm just going to pull up and see.
A thing that I will
Whoa.
not be here for.
Our Golden Agers voted.
Oh my god.
And it's currently a tie.
Okay.
Give me a coin.
Oh, a thing that we were given 2 coins for?
Yeah, well, I left mine at home. I don't bring it with me.
You could, yeah. And mine is in the junk drawer downstairs.
The junk drawer? You're just going to call it that?
Why? Because it's not.
You ungrateful
It itself is not junk.
Give me this.
I was downstairs when I had it, and then I was clearing off the counter.
Okay.
Put it in my.
It's a tie currently, and I'm going to break it with this coin flip.
A thing you're definitely going to be able to do properly.
It's a tie between either being about an episode about Red Tornado or about Elongated Man.
Yeah. Classically a thing you're good at.
So,
coin flipping.
You give it heads or tails. Heads is what?
What were the 2 options again?
Red Tornado and Elongated Man.
Heads is Elongated Man.
Okay.
Tails is Red Tornado.
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
How can you not do it?
Fine, I'll do it again.
Why is it this hard?
Heads. What did you say heads was?
I don't remember.
Okay, call it again. What is heads?
Heads is tails is no tails.
Just say
was
what
Red
heads
Tornado.
is.
Heads is elastic.
Heads is Elongated Man. Okay, here we go. Let's flip. Heads.
Okay, that's
an episode
twice.
about Elongated Man.
Oh fuck! I'm sad. I'm gonna miss that.
Yeah, well, guess you could just prioritize the important things.
Oh, I am.
I don't know.
Trust me, I am.
Really? You couldn't get that from me?
Where you wanna go down this road?
No. I truly don't.
I'll leave that up to the minds of the residents.
So yeah, send your questions about Elongated Man
to our Facebook.
Dr. DC Podcast.
Twitter.
At Dr. DC.
Instagram.
Dr. DC Podcast.
Email.
drdcpodcast@gmail.com.
You can jump on our subreddit.
r/Dr_DC.
The doc phone is always open.
208-917-3238.
208-917-DCEU.
If you're nasty.
Of course, we're young and cool. That's why we're on TikTok.
Yeah, at Dr. DC.
We're old and irrelevant. That's why we got a website.
drdcpodcast.com or .ca.
GeoCities.
Yeah.
Of course, why don't you give us a 5-star review? You can do so on whatever platform you listen to the podcast. And if you do that, just take a screenshot if it's on an Apple Podcast and send it to us through one of those other social media platforms. Also, why don't you send us some physical mail?
Yeah, get physical with us.
Yeah, with our mail.
Yeah.
Parts.
Send it to 301 Hogue Street. That's Hoge Street. White Horse, Yukon, Canada, Y1A 1V8. So you can send that to either Richard Eden or Reed Vanier. I didn't forget. I was debating whether or not I should describe it as hug with an E.
Oh.
And then I was like getting caught up in that in my head and just letting the thing trail off in real life.
No, I get it. Also, if you sling us some shekels, you can get some extra content every month through our Patreon.
That's right. Patreon.com/DrDC. There's a $1, $5, $7 level. They all give you access to the Doc Squad, our awesome fan community. And at the higher levels, you get bonus episodes, videos, theme pools, all sorts of fun stuff that helps to support us.
Yeah, speaking of us, we've got other shit that you can listen to for free.
Yeah, Ghostfacers, a Supernatural rewatch. We are going through every single episode of the CW Supernatural. We are into season 6. More like season 6.
Oh my god! I mean, by
the time you listen to this, the next episode of Ghostfacers that will come out,
yeah,
season 6 debut with Kyle Clark, friend and guest of both shows.
Yeah, absolutely. Sam this season is sex.
Oh my God. He's got those gutters.
Those cum gutters.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Those gin cure gutters.
Yeah, those semen troughs.
Those jizz junkets.
Those ejaculate eaves.
Those splooge trenches.
Splooge trenches. Oh no. Oh no. Those spunk canyons. Hell yeah. Yeah, more good content like this, I guess.
I mean, yes. Ciao, ciao.
Adios.
Heroes, they always fight for what is right. Live with danger and adventure, they are men of might.
This was a Brain Freeze podcast.